Hello, friends, and welcome to our second Simplify Live broadcast, a live Q&A meeting with Captain Alon Pereg to answer your questions. Today, we will answer only 3 questions as they refer to quite deep issues. Your comments, praise, and criticism is always greatly appreciated. Ready? So let's begin. Hello to Captain Alon Pereg. How are you?
Hi, Melody. Hi, Victoria.
Hello, Victoria.
Alon. And hello, Melody. Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, honestly. This afternoon I've had a wonderful fear of flying case, so let's see what problems we can unravel their travel fears. Let's go.
Indeed. So our first question is coming from Dennis. And Dennis says, I heard that a human error caused the plane crash in Nepal. Could that be? And how could a single mistake bring a plane down?
Okay, Dennis, thank you for the question. And normally we are not referring to accidents before we have a final and concluded investigation, which is being held at this time in Nepal. And I will, but since everybody's speaking about it, and I also had quite a few questions coming from the Israeli participants of our Q&A, I will refer to an aspect here. First of all, for the facts, the investigation committee has indeed found the both black boxes, which are actually orange colored. One is recording all the status switches and the actions of the systems of the plane, and the other one is recording the audio discussions in the plane and between the plane and the ground. So the investigation has very much information about what happened. But you're asking about things of how it happened. And how it happened, I guess we will never know for sure, but we will have pretty good understanding of what happened there. So what happened? I'm not going to dig into all the details of what happened, but as it seems, there was an issue, one single issue that started this whole thing, in which the pilot that flew the plane instructed the other pilot, and that's normal procedure, to lower the flaps. The flaps are part of the control system that increase the lift of the wing at a certain speed and therefore allow for lower speed flying. And that's necessary for takeoff and in this case for landing. So the pilot requested to lower the flaps to the landing position. What is known that the flaps did not move at all, but another thing, terrible thing happened, that both engines changed mode to which it's called feathered, in which the engine does not provide any power. Now, it happened at the same time, and by the way, the 2 levers that feather the 2 engines are adjacent to the single different color lever that lowers the flaps. So there is an option that because of human error, the pilot that was not flying, we called that pilot monitoring, erroneously feathered the 2 engines instead of lowering the flaps. Now, this is a terrible mistake. The levers are not the same color, size, feel. The flaps are being lowered by a single white lever when the engines are feathered by 2 separate levers. And I don't know how that can happen. But I would like to, and I believe that there will be final conclusion that will give the reasons to what it happened, or at least most probable reasons for what it happened. But I would like to refer to two things here. One is that in aviation, errors are a part of the game. It's a given because we're human and we make mistakes. That is why we have two pilots. That's one of the reasons that we have two pilots. In our system of working, or the procedures of working procedures, there is always one person that is instructing a task to do, a second person is performing, and then the first person has to cross-check that the desired outcome of this action was achieved. In this case, nobody double-checked that the flaps were indeed, the flap lever was indeed moved. Nobody checked that the flaps gauge showed that the flaps were retracted. Nobody checked that the engines, the power of the engine went down, and they only said something about there is not enough power, but they continued to lower the speed, not understanding that they cannot do that because the flaps were not down, and the plane without flaps retracted cannot, or extracted cannot reduce the speed, or it will stall. And the last tragic fact that we know, that the aircraft maneuvered as if it was stalled, and I do believe that it was stalled. And by the way, we could see that the flaps were not down from the picture, from the video of the crash. So one thing that I have to say, that definitely a mistake can happen. We make mistakes, but the fact that they did not trap the mistake and did not correct it is a problem. And then we have a method in aviation that's called threat and error management, which starts with identify the unwanted, or trap the problem before it occurs. For example, paint the handles in different colors, make it a different shape, etc. Then trap the problem if it happened, if a mistake was made. And then if you don't trap it enough and you are inside an undesired situation, for example, you don't have enough power, correct it. And they failed all the way. Now that brings me not very happily to what we said on our last meeting, that the aviation in Nepal is defined as not safe enough.
It's not trustworthy.
And I don't know if it's enough. It's what we need to say, not trustworthy, but it's not safe enough. And flying in Nepal in very challenging weather and terrain and runways, and on top of this all, not being safe enough, not following the procedures, well, guys, this is a tragedy waiting to happen. Now, if we are flying in all other areas of the world, we're not in such a risk, because the aviation in the world is in a different and higher standard. And that's, Dennis, my long answer to your short question. And I don't know eventually what happened there, why it happened.
Yes, indeed. Mistakes do happen, and it's very unfortunate. And yes, we'll move on to Dorothy's question. Can you explain the issue with the United flight that ended up almost 800 feet above the Pacific Ocean? How did that happen?
Okay, and again, I don't know all the bits and pieces of what happened there, because there is not yet any final conclusion of an investigation being done, by the way, by the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB. But again, let's start with identifying the facts and trying. And you know what? I will take this opportunity to talk about, to put it in comparison, or to refer to how we consume our press. Melody, do we see that?
Yes.
So this is a picture taken from Flight Radar 24, which should, in a way, describe us what happened to that flight. But let's start with the eventual facts. Everybody went home at the end of the day. Okay, nobody was hurt. And a second thing, people were talking about a nosedive. Now, nosedive, you think about a plane, going vertical down. Now, that could not happen. And I have a little mathematics to show it to you. They reported that the speed, the vertical speed, was 8,500 feet per minute. But the airplane only lost 1,500 feet between 2,200 and whatever it was, 850 or something like that feet. So the maximum time that this plane was in this diving angle was 10 seconds. In 10 seconds, the plane cannot get from being with a pitch up attitude to nose down and back. No, not even the F-16 that I was flying long ago. So nosedive, it is not the right expression to use it. Yes, the airplane lost altitude after takeoff. How much altitude it lost? It lost approximately 1,500 feet and reached an altitude of 800 feet when it was level already. Because if it was not level at 800 feet, it would have lost more altitude. So it's more of a sinking or something like that. That's one thing. Second thing, we know that there was quite a severe weather at that time, or I'm not sure if severe, but there was considerable winds and clouds after takeoff, which could have caused downdrafts. Now, these planes, and the specific plane was a Boeing 777, can stop climbing because of a downdraft, but not sinking. Or even if it sinks, it can be a very short sinking. I would maybe say that it was a mixture of turbulent weather causing a local disorientation of the pilots. Now, these planes have their own warning systems that if the plane starts to sink after or even a bit after takeoff, then the plane shouts. Or in the cockpit, we will hear a voice saying these exact words: "Don't sink, don't sink."
Wow.
And every pilot knows exactly what to do at this time, which is to apply full power and to get the airplane to climb again. Now, it may have taken them 5 seconds to react to that, and then applying more force and pitching up, and they regained the altitude that they lost. So,
did they actually reach, though? Were they actually at 800 feet, or
yes,
was it more?
That's what was published, and it seems that it corresponds well with the Flight Radar 24 information that was published. But again, it's not that, okay, everybody could calculate that with 8,500 feet per minute, then at 100th or 1/10 of that time of a minute, 6 seconds, you'll hit the ground. No, the maximum number was something like that, and the plane definitely, unless there was, multiple malfunctions there, the plane most probably was shouting at them, pull up or don't sink, because if it
And then they adjusted and
adjusted the
they
altitude,
raised. Okay.
they raised
So
the-
in this incident, in comparison with Nepal, there is some sort of error or malfunction, but they're able to notice it and to adjust and like you said, and bring everything back to normal.
Melody, that's exactly, because in the threat and error management, they probably did not manage well the threat, so they came into the undesired situation, but they have identified it and continued the flight. And again, we're talking about nosedive, but the FAA and the NTSB, the Transportation Board, did not declare it as something that they had to declare an emergency or something like that, which means that some of the reports were a little bit exaggerated. We're not talking about a thing that should have happened, but let's put it in the right perspective.
Okay, that's really important feedback, because as we know, the news have a tendency sometimes of overreacting.
Yes.
All right, so our next question actually comes from our Hebrew Q&A event that we did earlier this year, and it's relating to IT failure that caused cancellations and delays for thousands of passengers. How could that happen, and is it dangerous?
Okay, so I would like to take this opportunity to speak about two events. One was with Lufthansa a couple of days ago, a week ago maybe.
Right, correct.
An event that caused the cancellation of many of Lufthansa flights. And another one was in the United States a couple of weeks ago, in which most of the domestic flights were stopped, and there was a big chaos in these events that caused a lot of disruption to the traffic. So in both cases, the answer is similar. No, it's not dangerous. And the fact that it is not dangerous, because once such a thing happens, flights are being canceled and not taking off. Nevertheless, let's see what's happened. But these two events reflect two different types of problem, both caused by our highly dependency on information technology, IT, and computer systems. And I would like to give you just a bit of a taste of what is the challenge in production of a flight. And by the way, I prepared a little slide to show it to you. And the next slide is going to talk about how we produce a flight. Now, a flight is a very complicated production that involves many people, many processes, but roughly we can talk about two types of events. One is operational, which means making sure that the flight departs and gets to its destination. And the other one is commercial, which, making sure that the flight is productive in terms of bringing money to the airline, etc. Okay? Now, if we start with the operational side, then there is, and again, there are two areas again. One is the air type of things that needs to do. So, for example, if we want to fly from Los Angeles to London, then we have to make sure that there is a slot, a landing slot for us in London. We have to negotiate with the British authorities and to make sure that they allow us to land there and to do what we need to do. And that's very important. Now, we need to make sure that we're allowed to fly where we want to fly. We need to plan the flight and to make sure that it is that it follows all the rules. Somebody has to check that if we fly over Canada, at a certain point, there are not more than the X amount of planes that are allowed to be at the same place because of flight safety. And we want to make sure that the weather is okay en route and in the destination and on our departure time. And we have to make sure that we are following all the limitations. All of these are many pieces of information that should be gathered from different systems and integrated into our desired flight. Somebody has to do it. A second part of this is the ground operation inside the operational one. We have to make sure that there are pilots and flight attendants. We have to make sure that the airplane is maintained and being prepared by the ground handler for the flight. We have to plan and execute and check the loading to make sure that it is done properly. We have to bring the crew from the hotels and make sure that they have hotels. And we have to take the flight plan and dispatch it to make sure that every center in the way is aware of the flight, its destination, its type of aircraft, etc. There are many moving parts here that have to be coordinated in order to take off. Now, on the commercial side, there is handling, for example, the passengers, selling the tickets and making sure that a guy that bought a ticket from Japan and the other one that bought it in the airport 5 minutes before the last minute will not sit on the same seat. We have to make sure that we don't over plan on the flight to carry more weight than is required. Some planes are carrying cargo on top of the other things that they have to do. So we have to sell it and make sure it goes together. We have to check the passengers in. We have a lot of things to do. Now, all of these and many more activities are involved in producing a single flight. Now let's multiply it by tens of thousands of flights that we launch in order to take 12 to 15 million people and some other freighter flights. So this is a lot of effort that only computers can solve. Now there are roughly two types of systems. One is the global one that deals with the operational side, which is common to all the airlines and all the territories. And if a part of it fails, like it happened in the United States, then there is no way to submit a flight plan to a domestic flight, for example. Or there is no way to make sure that we can produce a flight plan that is deconflicted with all the limitations. So that's most probably what happened with the FAA problem a couple of weeks ago. And the commercial systems, which are the ticketing and things like that, is most probably what caused the Lufthansa flight cancellations and delays. Now let's think about a domino effect of a system that is down, let's say, even for an hour or two, which causes all the flights at that 2 hours to be delayed, but they should reach to another place and take off from that other place, and etc., etc. That causes a domino effect, which always will take time to rehabilitate, to get back to the schedule. So back to your question, it is not dangerous, but it is very difficult to stop such an event, and it takes time to regain your control. But in the way, there is no problem of safety because new flight plans cannot be produced, so new flights cannot initiate, and there is nothing with the controlling of the actual flights that is being damaged during such an event.
So it does expose our vulnerability because all systems are tied together, but there's no actual safety issue that people should be concerned about. Thank
Correct.
you. So that's it for today. We've gone through all of our questions and we'll continue next time, sorry. Yes. Although I wish it was next week. Thank you very much to Alon for his answers and to the viewers for the questions that you sent us. Continue please to send them to us. As always, we will post the link where you can send us our questions. And thank you for watching. At Simplify, we continue to help you conquer your fear of flying. We would appreciate if you share this video if you found it to be useful so that we could reach other fearful flyers and help them as well. And until next time, may we have a warm and peaceful week. And thank you again to Victoria for joining us. Hopefully we'll talk next time.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.